games.
A man who wins, brother.
Ooh, that's actually a
I
better
was
one.
gonna
God
say
damn
it, but I
it.
didn't want
God
to ego
damn it.
stroke him immediately.
It's okay. You can
It's
stroke
alright.
his ego just like you stroke his beard. Ooh.
You can stroke me whenever you want.
Let's get to change the name though.
You're already live. I noticed one
Yeah.
thing is I only see Diz and I.
What? You go to the whole thing. It's got.
Oh, okay. It was only giving me like the
Yeah.
thumbnail.
I was
All
like, what are
right.
you
I'm like,
talking
why do I
about?
only see Diz and I?
Crazy.
Definitely have to fix that anyway.
All right.
I didn't do my hair today.
No.
Don't
Me
go
either.
first for me for hot takes. I'm not sure I've got one yet.
Okay. Well, I go to guest first, so
Yeah.
Mom, get ready.
Yeah.
Fuck. I got a hot
Shit.
take. I got a hot take.
Is the Thrawn's better than
Do you
everybody
have your
says he
cold
is?
drink?
Oh, no,
Yes.
let me go get it real quick. Give me 2 minutes.
Ice Cube melted already, but I have it.
I was gonna do something fancy, and I'm like, screw it. We had what 20? We wound up with. I love when I plan a family party, and I'm like, hey, can everyone just give me a head count so I know how much food to make? And we were at 19 adults, and we wound up with 26 because literally everyone who said they couldn't make it just showed up anyway.
That's what happens.
I'm like, oh, cool. Good thing I'm Italian and make. There were 26 people. I think I made enough food for 50. I told my wife, and I sent everyone home. I go buy the Chinese food takeout containers in bulk at Costco or BJ's and send everyone home with doggy bags on their way out. I made chicken parm and this, as I call it, like chicken mignon, but it's like artichoke hearts, sun-dried tomatoes, mushrooms, and a white wine garlic sauce. And then I made some big ziti, and I made another 8 pounds of pasta and shipped everyone out with stuff on their way home.
Can you make authentic chicken marsala?
Depends on by your definition of authentic, because Northern Italy and Southern Italy make chicken marsala vastly different. If you get it,
then.
I guess, yeah. If you get it in Southern Italy, like where my family's from, it's that more watery marsala sauce. It's like a little bit thicker than like a white wine, like a wine sauce. It's like basically a red wine version of a white wine sauce. You get it more in Northern Italy, it's almost like a gravy.
Yeah, no. So I'm
sauce.
used to what I grew up with my dad making was the thinner texture because you use the sauce to deglaze the pan, not eat everything up at the same time. Because like I've seen it made the thick way, and it's too creamy. I don't like cream. Also, I need to have you talk to my wife and explain to her why you don't put cream in Alfredo sauce.
I mean, you can. It's kind
not
of
the
the cheesy way
same.
of doing
It's
it.
not the
It's the cheesy
same.
way. It's definitely not wrong. It's just
it's wrong.
It saves you from having to buy a bunch of different kinds of cheeses and like cook down cheeses and then put in stock and keep doing that dance of like, I need cheese in stock because I don't want my Alfredo sauce to really be like the thickness of like gooey mac and cheese. So it's definitely a little. Or I don't like it that way. I don't like it to be. I don't want to pick it up and have it like be a blob that I could like wave around my fork and it wouldn't fall off.
When I like think of like sauces for noodles, it very much is I like drier. Like I don't want my noodles to be just a blob of sauce. Like not really a blob. I don't like if I'm eating spaghetti, I want the flavor of the sauce to be there, but I don't want my palate to be just sauce. Like that's all it is. I'm not a big fan of like extremely saucy sauces.
See, then I water the sauce down a little bit with like olive oil and a little pasta water because you always want a little sauce at the bottom because then there's always fresh bread around and you got to be able to scoop it up.
Yes,
I love fresh bread. Party at Matt's house is what's happening. Like,
I make a pretty mean pesto pasta.
That's
I love pesto.
That's one that I've tried to make, but I mess it up every single time, and I don't know how. I don't know how I mess it up. I've tried making pesto so many times, and I'm like, how is it this difficult? It should not be this difficult to make pesto.
I do.
All
I
I'm hearing
grow
is
garlic.
Matt's cooking for PAX.
I grow basil and garlic in my garden, so I make my own pesto with that. Obviously, I don't grow pine nuts because I'm not a fucking savage.
You could.
To grow my own pine nuts, yeah. I'm betting your problem is are you just piling everything in your food processor at once and hitting like blend?
I don't have a food processor.
Oh, so when you make pesto, the big trick is you have to put stuff in a certain order because otherwise it'll emulsify. If you put the olive oil in too early, it basically gumps up the basil.
That's fair.
I
So
put
what
too
is your
much olive
preferred
oil into
order?
early. So I always put in some basil, the pine nuts, and like a couple drops of olive oil. Do that, then salt, pepper, a little bit more olive oil. Do that, and then Parmesan cheese and a little bit more olive oil. And then you add olive oil in depending on how thick you want it. Like if you want it to be like a sauce consistency, I put a little more olive oil and then plan to put some pasta sauce in it. If you want to put it as a spread, because I also do it like as a spread on sandwiches, I want it thicker, right? Like I want it to be like a thick mustard type consistency.
That makes sense.
Welcome to Rogue Support, a cooking channel. No, it's good. I love cooking though. I
got hit refresh. The stupid camera
What a
keeps going out of
gaggle of
focus every time I
nerds.
lean
Welcome
I kind of feel
Omnis.
bad
forward.
that you guys all have cool backgrounds and I'm sitting here in my guest bedroom.
I mean,
I'm
Accuser's-
sitting in my kitchen, dude.
Accuser's face.
In front of a curtain.
Your face is like, what?
Cool background.
What a cat!
What
Yeah.
program do you use, Dizzard?
I use NVIDIA Broadcast as my cleaner and my grabber of things.
What the heck?
Yeah, I don't know. Like, if you've got an NVIDIA card, you should just have it.
I do.
Yeah. And then if you go, you might have to like log out of Riverside and then back in because you have to have the broadcast grab the camera before Riverside does,
Oh.
and then you use the broadcast as your upload for Riverside.
Yeah, I'm still working on that on my side.
That's because you have a Mac. Boo!
I know.
Well, I wonder if I can just.
I found an app, but I didn't want to pay $40 for it.
I wouldn't either.
Yeah, hit me with that
Matt said
Patreon
he
money.
used, X Split.
Works on Windows. It does not work on broadcast on Mac OS. Hit my trash can about an hour ago.
Oh, so you just use the VCam. Okay. Thank you for Dode. If I get a virus and you guys, my computer, I just disappear. It's Matt's fault.
That's fair.
Take that.
Oh man.
All right, let's see. How does it work? So what time do you guys usually go live?
9:30.
Yeah, 15 minutes ago.
Oh shit.
Oh,
The cooking show derailed us, but
Yeah.
worth it.
Happens. I also need to finish posting at places 'cause I got distracted by the cooking show.
X gonna give it to you. Do you guys used to watch Pimp My Ride back in the day?
Yeah.
So they have a
Absolutely.
new one now on Netflix
Oh,
called
no.
like fuck, what's it called? It's not as great, but I kind of enjoy it.
Is it hosted by Exhibit still?
No, unfortunately not. It's
He was
called
the only
Resurrected
good
Rise.
part of that show. Like, oh man. Content creators. put this
Resurrected
in-
Rides.
Boop 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 boop. All right, Omnis. Seeing as you're the only person here right now, we need you to ask all the questions.
When is he gonna join your show again? Or his show? not
Yeah,
y'all's show.
he's the one supposed to be asking the questions, not you. He said I got
That's
you.
the added feature.
That's the added feature. Omnis is the added feature.
He's now the plant in the crowd.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love how you added two hosts and he's like, guys, I'm back.
That's the best thing is like the the week after being mad on Omnis is like, hey, I'm playing the game again.
I'm back. I'm changing all the channels, and you can't stop me.
It's okay. I love him. He has all the power too. It's funny because he can go through and change any channel he wanted to at any time. Pure
And
chaos.
he has. How many times did we rename the Empire chat or the Republic chat?
That was you naming it and then me renaming it. That was you and me going back and forth.
I thought he was in there too.
Maybe. It seemed like the wrong.
I think he did Palpatine vote.
Five would be
We
fine.
voted for
I do
Palpatine or
think I have
whatever
to
it
leave
is.
and come right back. So give
Yeah,
me
go
one
ahead.
second.
Yeah. I renamed it once. Yeah, because you did the. He's the one who named it. We elected Palpatine. That one was
Yeah.
him. And
Mhm.
yeah, So it's
I only did, I think, one because I. Yeah, what was the other one?
I don't remember. The droid one, that went back
The
and forth,
original
though.
white armor or something? I don't remember.
It was something like that, yeah. We like the Palpatine though, is just too good.
Look at whatever accuser's drinking.
Yeah,
Wanna get
what are
these,
you drinking?
cold
Old-fashioned.
pick.
Oh, I guess we gotta wait. We gotta wait till we get to there, I guess.
I was that was on my list. I have my brother gave me a nice bottle of rye whiskey that I like. So I'm like, maybe I'll make an old fashioned. And honestly, I was supposed to go to bowling. The last person left my house. My parents last one to leave. And I turned to my wife, I'm like, because I was doing a bunch of yard work yesterday morning before my wife's family got here. So I was like weeding the garden, weeding the patio. I was on my hands and my knees and didn't stop moving at all yesterday. So my back didn't start hurting until I woke up this morning and was like, my back really hurts. This is gonna suck being on my feet all day again. But I
Be right back.
yeah, they left. I'm like, I'm gonna sit down for a minute, like, and just like rest. And next thing I know, I took an hour-long nap. I'm like, well, I guess I'm not going to bowling because it started 5 minutes ago.
And then you're like, I'm gonna go back to sleepy sleep.
Yeah. Oh no, I did all the dishes and cleaned up because
Oh,
I am
that's
one of those
fair.
people who wouldn't be able. I'd be twitching if I was like laying in bed at night and knew there was just like a mess downstairs.
That's completely fair.
So I did dishes so I can get out of the way.
Kill a bug.
How to kill a bug.
kill a
The-
bug.
The savior.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But yeah, I mean, it's just Maker's Mark, so nothing crazy. But then it's a chocolate old fashioned, so I've got chocolate bitters and then maple syrup instead of simple.
Oh yeah, I've been the maple syrup one. My buddy, who's a big like whiskey drinker, turned me on to maple syrup in old fashions, especially with rye. So
Elevates
when
it.
I do rye and maple syrup.
It's like next level.
Oh, he's
Yeah,
already
if you
got
ever see like
questions.
a good old fashioned somewhere online, shoot it to me because I'm gonna probably try it.
That's fair.
There was a Millennium Falcon shaped ice cube in there, but it melted a while ago. So
It's also fair.
I have the Death Star ice cube makers.
so do I. I can't find them though. I don't know
Oh.
where it went. It's somewhere buried in my freezer.
Yeah, I've seen wine, just a beer because we have a bunch of Sam Summer left over, and I'm like, that sounded nice.
Oh,
and
but Sam
refreshing.
Summer's so good. Yeah.
Yeah, honestly, like it was the wine because as I was cleaning up this bottle that was left open,
Gotta
was
finish
just
it.
sitting there. Yeah, and like I'm like I could put it in the fridge, finish it tomorrow, and I have like a decanter that presses down and shoves all the air out, so it stores it for
Yeah.
longer.
There you go.
But I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna finish a glass of wine.
Is
Just
it
a big glass of red wine.
heresy of Italian culture to waste a bottle of wine?
Waste? Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't waste it. No, like
It's
putting it in
alcohol
the fridge.
abuse.
Put it in the fridge till tomorrow is fine. So like
Yeah.
I have a general rule of thumb. I have like the little like stoppers that push out a little air, and that'll keep
Mhm.
the wine at quality for like 3 days. If I
Yep.
know it's gonna be longer than that, I have one of those like fancy Evo decanters that's like $200 that actually like has a double seal layer. You push it down and shoves all the air out, and that I've tested it. So I have a bottle of wine that like my favorite wine. I could tell you. I could in a blind taste test pull it out of the bag blind 10 out of 10 times. So I did a sample and I poured out like half an ounce of it every day. It took 14 days for the wine to start losing quality, in my opinion.
Wow.
Using
That's-
that decanter and pushing all the air out. So
that's impressive.
It's good to
My,
know because we can't always finish a bottle.
yeah.
My experience when it comes to wine revolves around slap the bag.
Hoorah.
Hoorah. Expert VCam. Oh my god. He's fancy
Oh.
now.
God. I'm gonna
Goes
figure this out. Like
Goes
it's mentioned in
away
the next week.
just to show up.
Accuser's gonna be like, I spent $40, guys. Like I couldn't do it.
I caved.
Put it on the Patreon. That's fine.
Yes, just
Yeah, that's
send me the
what it's
Your
invoice.
support bought me a background.
send me the invoice. That's how. Say something, Amon.
I'm giving up on
There
you.
it is. There it is.
I was gonna say his background looks great, but we lost the audio.
I thought we did for a
There we
second.
go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say that's like over my face on this thing. That's fine. I didn't see my face. I'm exhausted. I didn't see it.
Okay.
No one's here for our faces. Like, let's be real.
Nope. Yeah.
We're here
that is
for
not.
Amon's face.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, let's go ahead and get this show on the road. I'm gonna hit buttons, and we can do the things. Make sure I have this pulled up. Okay. Make sure I have this pulled up. Let me turn that down before we hit the buttons. Okay, hitting buttons.
Welcome, my young apprentice. Stretch out with your feelings.
I can bring you in warm, or I can bring you in cold.
Welcome back to another week of Rogue Support. We have a very special episode for you this time, and that is because we have Amon joining us. Welcome, Amon, to the show.
Hello there.
He did the thing. He did the thing. Oh man. We brought Amon on to talk some good old Shatterpoint with us. And we're gonna go ahead and we got a big episode today, so we're gonna roll right into it. First of all, Amon, would you like to give the good old fashioned shout out?
Shout out.
Yeah. Shout yourself out. Plug.
Oh, yes. Hello there. Yeah, hey, so thanks for having me on, Matt Diz Accuser. Yes, I am part of the Hello There podcast with Jesse Aiken. If you haven't heard of us, please check us out. We love talking about Star Wars Shatterpoint, the Star Wars universe, and really all aspects of the game. And we love to do it with special guests like Dizzard and Matt. So check us out.
Absolutely. And one of the big things going on recently is like we talked about last week, and you have an episode coming out here shortly. You won LSO the previous weekend, and big congrats to that on taking down the big old Lone Star Open. I'm trying to think of something witty, but I'm not that fast. Like I'm slow on the wit tonight. Like
It's because I made you guys start 20 minutes late.
yeah, that's typical, you know. It's not start late. Oh man.
Well, yeah, thanks, man. It was super exciting. It's a good event.
Absolutely. All right, I'm kind of scatterbrained at the moment. My notes are so weird right now for some reason. Okay, let me put a timestamp down because I'm bad at this game. And this is the first time I've used a timestamp in forever. All right. All right. I'm gonna basically say you want to just shout out the LSO episode, and then you want to like basically give people an idea of what they could look forward to with that. Does that sound good?
Yeah, I think that sounds great.
Okay. All right. Starting now. So you have a LSO episode coming out soon. Do you want to go ahead and tell people what they can expect with that, and how and what? Oh my God! Can I word today? Oh, this is like the worst I've been in forever. All right, let's do this one more time. All right. So you have an episode talking about your victory over LSO. Do you want to tell people a little bit about what they can expect with that?
Yeah, thanks for giving me the platform to do so. So the episode should drop on the 29th of July. And essentially what we do is Jesse and we talk about our thoughts going into the event, why we picked the list that we did, how we approached the event as a whole. We don't do a game recap, but we just talk about like things we've learned and kind of the reasons why we selected our list, which we thought was the more interesting conversation. And really just recapping the event, talking about the top cut, how those final games played out, and some stats behind the event as well. So I think it's a good one. We tried to keep it short, but we also were super excited to just talk about a lot of the cool lessons that we learned. So please check that out after you listen to Rogue Support.
Okay, I got one question real quick. I'm gonna throw it because this wasn't planned at all. I'm gonna throw you a curveball. What was the most surprising list you saw at all of LSO?
Oh, that's such a good question. There was a list with Anakin in it. It made in the top 8. I believe it was like an Anakin Hunter list,
Mm-hmm.
which was really cool. I think the coolest list I saw though was Bad Batch with Mando, Chewie, and Rebel Commandos. Sorry, no, Bartu and Lando. I thought that was really cool because it's all scoundrels,
Mm-hmm.
so it makes good use of Wrecker. But also, there's just a lot of movement, and it doesn't really need to kill you. It just sits on points.
That does sound pretty interesting. And then Accuser, I know you had a burning question that you wanted to ask Amon about, a little design.
Oh yeah, that one. I mean, so I know there's older games where when you won events, you got to design something for the game. So having won a GT, if AMG let you design any character for the game, either in game as a new version or something else, who do you pick and why?
That's a very tough question to start the show.
It only gets harder from here.
Yeah. No, that's a really good question. I think there's some low hanging fruit. I think personally, man, I'll pick two. I won't go into well. I don't know.
I'll allow it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So obviously, what I would really want is another Lord Maul in this game. And I think the way that I would want to see that happen would be in a dual pack with Qui-Gon and Padawan Obi-Wan Kenobi with some really cool generator theme stuff. And I would want to make him a secondary. I think that would be really cool to open up a new flavor for Maul and maybe do it in a manner in which that he is all gas, no brakes. He kind of is a little bit, but he's actually very controlly in a way. And I just don't want any of that. I want him to gain benefits for fighting multiple combatants at once. Like think of like
I mean, like,
what's that?
yeah,
Like
Mando
Inventive.
has it. Bausch has it.
Yeah, like Fearless
with,
and
like-
Inventive, I think is
yeah.
the name.
Oh yeah.
But I'd want it to be like even better than that, and then he gets bonuses when attacking Jedi primary, like Savage in a way, and really maybe has this really cool ability where he can like force a force user or a secondary to attack him, kind of like he goads Obi-Wan in the movie, and Obi-Wan kind of loses himself a little bit, gets a little angry, but then finds himself in some BS. But
So almost inverse mind trick, almost a taunt.
almost like a taunt. Yeah, I think that would be really cool. I think that would be really fun for this game. Like your enemy character, maybe it's a reaction. You have to attack me. If you choose not to, right, 2 less dice or 3 less dice, or you gain strained or exposed or a combination of conditions. I think that'd be really fun. So yeah, I'd love to see another Maul. I think that's pretty on brand. And I'd love to see a primary Ezra Bridger.
Ooh.
Ooh.
Now we're talking.
Yeah. I want late season Ezra, green lightsaber, holding it down. And maybe make Kanan the secondary, right? I think that would be a lot of fun. Then you can really break out Rebels and Spectre and have a good time with it.
I'm on a Rebels rewatch, so I really like that answer.
Yeah. I love Rebels so much.
It's so good. I'm on to season 4 as of last night. So
What are the tags on your secondary Maul?
that's
Is he
a good one.
separatist?
So I think it depends on how deep you want to get into the lore. I feel like you could have him as separatist because from the good guy's perspective, he's helping the Separatist Alliance. But I think if you didn't give him that tag, you could most certainly do. Like, I think you would call him either Darth Maul, Sith Apprentice, or Darth Maul, Sith Warrior, and then I would just give him Force User, Sith, Warrior, just for the sake of maybe Warrior. We'll do something exciting outside of Ewoks one day. And maybe Apprentice, if that's a thing, right? And then you can build off Apprentice in the future, which I think could be cool.
No Dathomirian love?
Oh, well, yeah, of course.
Not anymore. Oh man.
Of course.
Okay. We do have a question for you from I don't know if this is pointed at you specifically, but I'm gonna make it pointed at you specifically from Omnis. If you had to paint an alt color scheme for Sabine right now, what would it be?
Oh, that's a great question. I would do late season 4 Sabine
Yes.
with the blue hair. I think that's a really good alt scheme. If you want to keep the helmet on, I do believe her armor color changes. So I think that's
They give you 4
probably
seasons in Ahsoka.
yeah, and then Ahsoka changes too. But I would do late Rebels animated show Sabine Wren.
Accuser, do you have any recommendations?
Recommendations for.
Sabine alt color skin.
I mean, I did mine season 2. I thought that one was really cool, and my Legion I think is like season 3 or 4. Having painted a number of Sabine Wrens across systems now. But I also like the one out of the Ahsoka show. Like very clean lines, very. I like the dark muted color tone. Different character. It's great.
And Matt.
Oh, you're talking to the wrong person. I'm not a painter by nature. So yeah, I have somebody else painting my stuff for me. So it's gonna be whatever he decides and whatever muse speaks to him when he goes to paint it. So
Fair.
You're supposed to tell him what you want it to look like, though, Matt.
yeah, that's one where it's like, so there are definitely some things where I'm like, hey, I specifically want you to try to like do this or capture this or capture this. One of the cool things he's doing is for the Rebel Commandos, he's green stuffing on a beard so we can have the old man guy that isn't Rex.
Love that.
Nice.
So he's doing that for one of them. So like I give him some direction, but other ones I'm like, hey man, like you're the creative one. You have fun with it. Go to town.
Fair. Mine would be just go full Empire with it in black and red. I know how boring it is, but Empire it up. Or make it all white. That'd be cool. Oh.
Yeah, I'm really tempted to paint things as Sith troopers, but then also I don't want to acknowledge their existence. So
That's also fair. All right, so we're gonna move on to our hot takes and cold drinks. And Amaz, as you're the guest, do you have a hot take for us?
yeah, hot take is I think we should normalize games going to Struggle 3 more and more. I think there is a greater influx of players, but also so many more resources, and conversation is spreading so much more rapidly than it was just a year ago, 6 months ago. So games are going to get to Struggle 3 because the players are getting better. Also, there is, I don't want to call it power creep, but I want to just say that there are some really strong synergies coming out right now. And I think players can utilize those strong synergies that lean into aggressive playstyles to help them make up for the fact that they might be newer or they might not be as skilled, and then push a game to Struggle 3, right? I had a friend recently who was a little frustrated that a game went to Struggle 3, and I was just saying, like, sometimes dice are going to dice and order deck's going to order deck, and especially if they're playing like an Iden or a Hunter, right? Sometimes they're going to roll you, but you can still win that game. And he did, as expected.
And your drink?
I am not a beer guy, so I drink gin and tonic, and I'm having a gin and tonic right now with some Hendrix.
I feel like gin and tonic is like your go-to because I think last time you were on the show it was gin and tonic as well.
No, that was when I confused the wines.
That's right. Oh, now I remember.
Yeah, yeah.
I remember now.
Not a wine guy either, as you can tell. But
Same. All right, Accuser, what's your hot take and cold drink this week?
Oh man, I've been really bad at this, but I came out swinging with my first hot take, and I'm not sure I've got another one. But I don't know. I do think the Rebel Leia box, Charming Leia, I think that's really going to blow open some doors. Matt, you had a game with Han and Chewie and the whole Leia box last week, and I think that really changed my perspective on Han and Chewie. Like, apparently they were workhorses that I think were unexpected. I think that box is going to be really big. Even if it's you're now 2 or 3 identities deep on some of the characters, I think it's going to really unlock a lot of Rebel potential and Ewok potential at that. That's where I'm at. That's my hot take. For cold drinks, I'm actually doing an old fashioned tonight. I do not have beer with me. So yeah, I'm doing a chocolate old fashioned with chocolate bitters and maple syrup instead of simple.
Fair enough. All right, Matt, hit us with something spicy.
So Gizzard kind of, or Accuser kind of trampled on me a little bit there with my hot take because
I'm so mad.
Yeah, well, so my hot
Don't
take
make me go
is,
first.
if you remember from a couple weeks ago when we talked about when we actually like briefly discussed the Leia box, I was saying that I thought Han and Chewie were meh and were a little underwhelming for 5 points. I was wrong. I was 100% wrong. You can't tell my wife that I admitted I was wrong about something, but they are the amount of plays that I feel like I can make with them. I'm now 4 games deep in with the Leia box. I have shatter pointed Han and Chewie in 2 of those 4 games. Like, they are great, and I never feel bad shatter pointing them. They're solid. They can do a ton for sure. Their defensive expertise is what holds them back, but man, their offensive expertise is great. Their ability to move is amazing. I love them. They're great. They're really good. So part of also like the right, like unlearn what you have learned is I thought they were bad and I learned. So and my slightly cold-ish drink, room temperature, I brought wine tonight. I had an open bottle of wine, so I brought wine. We're bringing all the different variety on
We're
drinks.
so off brand tonight.
Yeah, I was actually gonna bring a gin and tonic. That was my original other plan. So I'm glad I didn't. So I didn't. Yeah, I was, as soon as about the gin and tonic, I'm like, crap. I'm glad I didn't do that also, because I would have lost my hot take and my cold drink all in one go. So
I went really vague with it because I haven't been able to play them yet. So I'm really glad you could dive a little bit deeper with your hot take, and I'm excited to play them having watched you do it. So
yeah, they're fun.
change my opinion too.
Yeah, they're fun. So, and then yeah, this is your up.
My cold drink is just a hazy little thing, just just IPA. And then hot take. I don't really have anything crazy for once. I guess that's gonna be controversial, and people say I'm crazy. So this is gonna be weird. I think I'm back on the train that Thrawn is being not talked about enough, and I think that there's more to Thrawn than we see. But again, he's not out yet, so it's kind of like not many people have had the chance to playtest him or really dive into him. I think he plays way better on the table than his card reads. And I do think that there's a lot to unravel because the battle tactics bring a whole different dimension. Like when I was playing Hondo, it was like, I get global dashes. And then the Thrawn is like, I get 2 global dashes and a potential reposition. How about that? So he's got a lot of movement going on, and name of the game is movement when it comes down to it. So I've been having a lot of fun with Thrawn, and I am banging my head against a wall because I am like 10 different directions with this list, and it's driving me crazy. So my hot take is, if you don't want to bang your head against a wall, just wait for somebody to crack the code with Thrawn and then play him. All right. And then with that, we're going to go ahead and thank our patrons. We had a new one sign up this week. It'll be Darth Nader. Thank you for becoming a patron, and thank you to everybody else who supports the show. Thank you for listening to us, to everybody else who enjoys this content. And we're going to go ahead and do a quick reminder that challenging the odds was going to be Ewoks. And what we're doing now is we're going to kind of set it up to where we're able to play the suggestion that came up over the last week. So that way we can kind of get ahead of the curve instead of trying to last minute plan a game, plan a list, and do all this stuff within like a matter of like days and sometimes hours. So we're going to get ahead of the ball with this one and get it lined up a lot better logistically. So Ewoks will be playing the game this week. Let us know what you would like to see in the one after Ewoks for challenging the odds. An Accuser, you're up.
For challenging the odds, I mean, I think I'm seeing a theme out of hot takes, right? Where I think we're really bad just generally analyzing characters before we get to put them on the table, right? And I don't think that's exclusive to us. I think that's just kind of a community thing. I think Shatterpoint's really hard to analyze a character just straight up not having put them on the table. I mean, Han was one, Thrawn the other. My challenging the odds is pick up something that's been spoiled and try it. before you pass judgment and say it's bad or it's not a good unit or it's dead on arrival or whatever the spin is on it, put it on the table and try it for yourself before you pass judgment on it. We've done it, and we're able to admit we're wrong on it. So my challenging the odds is pick up something you think's bad and take it for a spin.
I'm just gonna put a timestamp here, Phil. You said I have something to talk about, so I passed.
Yeah,
it.
he was someone you put in the Discord chat. Yeah, he
I thought it
wasn't.
was challenging the odds thing.
No,
that's-
well, also remember, challenge the odds, right? They give to us is the challenge of the odds. Yeah, no, he wanted you to hit on whatever you put in the chat saying, I got a thought.
Well, that was my thought, so I spun it that
okay.
direction. Like, we're really bad at
Oh,
analyzing cards. I think that's the theme out of hot
Okay.
takes. So it was like, oh man, I feel on the spot. I didn't know. He didn't say in the chat. He saw it, so it was like, all right, I'll roll.
I see everything.
Where's our trombone? Womp,
I
womp.
think I have one actually.
Yeah, we need that. Get that.
No, I got this. I got that. Anyways, go ahead and just start up with. This is why the live show is fun because you get to see all the bloopers. I'm actually gonna have to edit. this
Who's
episode.
watching Omnis? Like, okay.
There's people in there. But anyways, go ahead and just start it up with saying your
Getting into our
thought.
topic?
Yeah.
Oh, you're doing
I can-
yeah.
I can riff. Here we go.
Yeah.
So my thought coming out of hot takes and cold drinks, right? We talked Han, we talked Thrawn, and I think we're coming out of this seeing that Shatterpoint characters are really hard to analyze just looking at the cards. I think that it's easy to pass a snap judgment and say a unit is bad or it's going to underperform relative to something else without actually seeing it in play on the table. I mean, is that something you guys are seeing as well?
I'm on.
Yes and no. I feel like I think a good example that really helps your statement is Hera. Right? Like I think a lot of people were pretty down on Hera, and then we're seeing good players, but players of all skill levels are really finding success with Hera. I think what's easier to point out is when a character is really good. Right? Like when you see Kanan or Mando's card, and you see their stance trees as well, and you're like, oh wow, this card is amazing. And then it's not hard to spot a good one. I think you're right in the sense that like maybe Thrawn, right? Because Diz has mentioned Thrawn a couple times. People like dismiss Thrawn, but if you really just sit there and read his card over and over again, and then maybe just play him a couple times, you're probably thinking, holy crap, Thrawn can probably be one of the best primaries in this game. I just got to figure it out, right? So I'm kind of there with you for sure.
Is it because Thrawn's maybe more nuanced and where Kanan's like and Kanan and Mando are significantly more straightforward to play?
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? It's just they're just overtly good because you read the card once and you're like, wow, I want to play him or her.
Any thoughts, Matt?
No, I mean, I think Amani hit the nail on the head there, right? There's definitely this again, not simple models, but the obvious ones that are just we do this, right? And there's obviously nuance to everything. You can make great plays with all of these models, but I agree that the models like Thrawn, because of just the complex nature of what's on their card, I think that's going to cause a slower learning curve. And we talked about that before, right? That ultimately I think Thrawn's going to have a good place, but I think in the short term, he's not even going to be, and I'm wrong about that, right? We thought he was going to be the least impactful model in his own box. Well, at least I did in the short term. And when we get a little bit more into some of the more recent data, we'll find out real quick that I was wrong again. Also, don't tell my wife that. So.
I've already emailed her, Matt.
Oh.
I agree with this as well, and like this is a reason why we kind of stray away from like doing box reviews as far as like our like what we think this character is going to do insanely with the meta. This is something I do like want to like praise Hello There for is your guys' box reviews are very much very straight to the teeth, and it's not like I think this character is going to change the meta. I think this character is going to do this. It's like, hey, this is what this does. This is the lore behind this, and it's very evergreen material, like you guys set out to do. Versus, we'll see a card gets revealed or something like that, and it's very much like I don't know. We did the one with Han and Chewie, and we were like, "What is this character even good for?" And then Matt and I played a game, and it was like, "Oh my god, this character is nuts." And so it's very much reading the card with Shatterpoint, and any game in general is usually the probably the worst take you can have on a card the first time you read it. Agreed.
Play more games.
Play
Yeah.
more games.
Always good advice.
All right. So then we're going to go ahead real quick. And Matt, you want to take the show from here with the LSO reminder we wanted to talk about?
Yeah, so one of the things and obviously we went deeper into all the data and stuff last week, but we thought it'd be nice to kind of take a look at today since we have Amon on. Take a quick snapshot again at the overall meta from LSO. And what we want to kind of think about is now that Thrawn and Princess Leia box exist, the meta obviously already is evolving a little bit. We're seeing it with the NA League that has 44 players, 48 players. So we want to kind of take a look at that and look at how it's changed. So we're going to start by just quick. I'm going to throw up here I forgot I got to share in here. Is this one? Yeah. All right, cool. So first is taking a look here. So this was the overall recap of primaries played for LSO. So we had talked about this last week. Iden was played most with 12 players, bringing them Gideon 11, and then Hunter 9, Mando Vader 2 at 8, and then a pretty significant drop off to Lumi at 5. So this is what we saw. I think the most surprising thing, at least, for Amon to recap from our opinion from last week, one of the most surprising things we saw was actually what was unused. Obviously, some of these weren't out, but no Talzin, no Luke, no Grievous. I think we weren't shocked by the amount of Empire and the frequency of Empire. As obviously the person who was there and ran the tournament, ran through it all, right? Is there anything that surprised you that wasn't taken or was taken more or less than you would have thought?
It's a hard question to answer because also the event has happened. But I think in the moment, when I was looking at, we talked about it a little bit, right? As we were planning for the event. But even Jesse and I, we both figured that there'd be a lot of Empire, a lot of Bad Batch, and then sprinkled somewhere around would be Mando, right? And I was really proud of everyone who went to the event because everyone did use an SPT code. And if you look at like the most popular units, the first like 6 to 8 units are Empire, Bad Batch, including ARFs, right? I lump them in Bad Batch because a lot of people are taking them there. And then Mando, right? So I think that wasn't surprising. I will admit, to not see a single Grievous or not see a single Talzin, I thought was very fascinating, especially considering that Dooku was present, right? He was there. To me, I think it just starts showing a little bit of age when it comes to those unit designs in particular, which is so weird to say, right? But Grievous is like so good at killing Empire, right? He's fast. He almost guarantees a kill, just like Iden and some other characters do. But then he just dies, right? He has really bad defense. He doesn't get protection like Wrecker or Steadfast, like, Fifth Brother characters like those guys do. And then Mother Talzin, I think that box is just, I think you guys may have mentioned on a show yourself on one of the Rogue Support episodes. But to me, like, I just don't think that box can hang anymore, right? So if Dathomirians and Seps just die, and Empire now plays shifting better than them with Iden, then I guess it starts to make sense. But I was kind of taken aback. I was like, where are my Seps at?
Yeah, I think that was overall our biggest kind of surprise of the meta was less what was at the top, what was missing. So obviously we had talked a lot about this last week, and obviously listen to the Hello There episode dropping, as they're going to take a deeper dive, especially from the point of view of two of the people who were there playing and doing very well. So what I want to take a look at now, and we're going to do a little bit of we'll put you all on the spot. So looking at the NATTS League, again, we're only week 1 in. Everyone has not reported as we're recording this episode, but we have 40 players, so 20 games done. I want to go with, I'm going to keep up on the screen for now, the primaries that were played last time. We're going to start with Aman. Aman, top 3 most played primaries in week 1 of the NA League. What is your guess?
Oh, that's tough. I think it's definitely going to be an Empire and at least one Empire, if not 2 Empire primaries. And I think Kanan just has to be in there because Kanan is so popular. And a lot of the North American players that I see and I follow have been repping Kanan. So I'll say Kanan is in the top 3. I'll say Iden, and I'll say Gideon, Moff Gideon.
All right. Accuser, your top 3.
Gideon, Hunter, Mando.
Gideon, Hunter, Mando. Okay. And Diz, same question.
Iden, Mando, Kanan.
All right. So now I'm going to switch our screen, and we're going to look at this data, because I thought this was really interesting as we got into it. So I apologize for my lovely Google Sheets for it. So number 1, 12 games out of 20 total games, 40 players. Kanan brought 12 times.
I win.
Love it.
I was like 2. So 2 you had Kanan. Gideon 11 times. Accuser, you did not. You had Gideon, Hunter, Mando.
I was
you
one of the ones playing.
Okay. And then Thrawn 7 times. So Aman, you were the most accurate. You had 2 out of 3 nailed. So Thrawn at 7, and then rounding out, because obviously not everyone's watching or looking at this, Mando at 6, Iden, Princess Leia, and Hunter at 5, Maul at 4, and then a bunch of people down 3, 2, and 1. The first thing I want to point out, very interesting here. We talked about there being no Luke at LSO. We do have 3 Luke here. Still no Grievous. Still no Talzin. And one thing that's interesting on here, there's no Vader 1. And Vader 1 was still brought by 4 players at LSO.
There's no Dooku either.
No Dooku, which was a short one as well. Like there were I think there were 2 at LSO. I just thought some of these were interesting. So have everyone's guesses here. Aman, you win the fake trophy for most accurate on the guesses. So what I want to look at now is, let's start by talking about, let's start by talking about these numbers. So, starting with Aman, what surprises you out of these top few that we just talked about?
Yeah, definitely Thrawn. And the more and more I think about it, it's shiny toy syndrome. But then also I think a lot of the people who would put Thrawn on the table, I mean, Thrawn has a huge fan following, but then also we got a lot of big brainers out here in NA, right? And I feel like people are trying to like make these really cool creative lists and try Thrawn out. So I think that's interesting. I'd be really curious to see Thrawn's win rate. Oh, I guess it's on the screen.
Well, and we're gonna dive a little bit deeper into Thrawn as well.
Okay.
Yeah. So he 57%. He won 4, lost 3.
So that tracks.
Do you mind if I interrupt real quick? I know we've been getting called out on this a whole lot, but I just have to say this right now. Okay, I'm gonna say the people who played Thrawn week 1. We got Sarah Cruel, who I know, like me and him have been going back and forth on Thrawn for weeks now, like since he was spoiled. We got myself. You got Matt Butcher, which great player. You got Evil Houdini, great player. You got James Green. I don't know James Green. I'm sorry if you hear this, but he's repping Thrawn.
At this point, by association, he is a great player.
Yeah, if you're playing Thrawn, you're a great player. Kevin Caldwell. you know, whoever that is.
He's fine.
That's Emperor. Isn't that Emperor
Yes.
Kevin?
It is
Yeah.
Emperor Kevin.
Yeah, it is Emperor Kevin.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
And
Not in on the
then
joke.
the last one is Duncan. So it's like the names of people who brought Thrawn, the 7 names who brought Thrawn week 1, are the only name that I didn't know on here was it James?
Mhm.
And like
Great player.
yeah, do you know him?
No, I have no idea.
Oh, okay. I was about to say like
Because he plays
He's
Thrawn.
just,
just
he's
because he
playing
plays Thrawn.
Thrawn. It's,
But like
yeah.
my point here is like 6 out of 7 are rather I would say big names across the Shatterpoint community. I don't know James, and I'm sorry, but now I'm gonna find you and hit you up so I do know you because you're playing Thrawn.
We can fix this.
We can fix this, but like I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
all those guys are big brain bros.
So then, Amon, any other thoughts besides I definitely agree with what you're saying with like the new shiny and also the kind of challenge level on Thrawn. Anything else with these that's sticking out to you?
No, not really. I mean, if I had to make a comment, curious that like, how is Asajj being played?
Asajj was played with a weird matchup. If someone can find that, like,
Yep.
I forget. Oh, Asajj is. Why do I want to say Ahsoka? That doesn't sound right.
Asajj
So
Ahsoka.
while I'm, oh, it was Asajj Ahsoka. Okay, I thought I remember that one being kind of weird. Yeah, that was the only, and that was like the closest. I don't even think. Obviously, we don't have SPT codes when it's open like that, so we don't know if it was separatist. But very interesting. Accuser, anything sticking out to you here with these?
I'm excited to see Princess Leia charming to the last at 60% win rate. That's exciting. I mean, it's not as splashy as Thrawn, but I do think that she has a very good card and a very good identity. So I'm excited to see her there. The fact there's no Vader 1 though, because Vader 1 for me is like the iconic meta boogeyman. The fact he didn't make an appearance at all, like at all, blows my mind. He's just been so present since he was spoiled and released, and there was a 6-month dry spell where he just dominated the meta because there wasn't anything new. What pushed him out? Is it the excitement over Thrawn, or are we just tired of him? What's the story there?
I think it's
that's a great point.
Pins
Yeah.
from ISF and Hask in that box.
Yeah, not getting that tactic to remove a condition is really holding Vader 1 back. And I think it's even, sunsetting his identity that is insane to that, because he can just have much less effective turns for sure.
Yeah, the melee identity just does not feel as relevant today. I think everything coming out like Iden, Princess Leia, like they're playing the game at range 5. Leia's Vengeance Band is a dash plus range 5. Like, what's the melee identity doing at that point? Is that part of it as well? The shift to a gun line?
I don't know if we've gone fully to gun line, but yeah, definitely there is more shooting. I still think you need to have your list has to have the ability, unless you're going full like defense. You have to have the ability to go punch something or kill something when you need to. But
Sure.
unless obviously you're trying to play the full revenge or stalemate type game. And then Diz, anything that's standing out to you?
I think Thrawn being at a 57% win rate is probably the most surprising, because the more I play Thrawn, and even like initial thoughts, it was like he's not doing anything absolutely nutty or crazy or new to the game. He's just doing more of it, and I guess maybe that more of it is enough to push him over that edge. I don't really know how to read the Thrawn win rate just yet, because it's very mystifying, because I'm excited for it, because I am being validated right now. Because even though it is only 1 week of percentages, it still is 7 games of data that we didn't have before, and it's very interesting. And I would like, if anybody who's playing Thrawn, go ahead and hit me up so we can think tank this.
Not to like burst your bubble too much, but
Yeah.
It's as close to a 50% as it could possibly be given the amount of games played.
Take it.
Say the same thing.
I'll take it. I am not a statistics or a math person. I am just a bald dude with a love for Thrawn right now.
So my kind of take on this, and keep in mind, for everyone listening, my 3 other guests, co-hosts today, did not get to see his data beforehand. I did, so I had a little bit of chance to dig in a little bit more. I think there are 3 things that surprised me the most, and I'm going to tie them back a little bit to what was talked about earlier as well. One of them being, if you look at the LSO data, number 1 was Iden with Gideon number 2 at 12 and 11. Gideon is still number 2 here with 11 played. Iden has fallen to 5. And I'm curious, we're going to look at, like, is it that Thrawn is just replacing Iden? Obviously, this is short-term data like we talked about. It's not Premier. It's a single standard list. So maybe we're reading too much into that. I thought that was really interesting. The other 2 things is when I flip this data to look at win percentage, Hera and Leia both 2-0. And I want to bring back to something that Amon said earlier in the episode about how Hera was kind of overlooked early and people were down on her. But obviously going into, like, it's only 2 games, but Hera, both of these were Hera Kanan and 2-0. So it works, right? Like, Amon hit down the head, people were down on her. And as you said, good people are trying to make her work, and it's working, obviously.
Just one point of clarity real quick, Matt. It's Leia 1, so Ewok Leia, not Charming Leia.
Correct. This is Leia 1. And keep in mind, so one of those was...
Just for the listener at home.
Yeah, one of those was Leia Logray, one of those was Leia Kanan. We obviously don't know what was... Again, we don't have SPT codes. We don't know what was brought with them, but those were the 2 pairings. Obviously, both Hera were Hera Kanan.
Yeah, you just said Leia, so I just want to make sure the listener at home knew which one.
Yeah, not Charming. Thank you. So yeah, those were the 3 things that seemed most interesting to me. Just that those 2, we saw. So there's a couple other people who didn't lose. Obi-Wan Kenobi was played once and won. That was actually an Obi Mace game that won. And then obviously Logray was brought once, was brought with that Leia Organa and won. So I found it more interesting that 2 kind of overlooked primaries that haven't been talked a lot about recently were the ones falling up, rising to the top a little bit 2-0. So I thought it was really interesting. So one of the things I want to kind of dive into and look at a little bit more is that idea of Thrawn as the new, Thrawn, the new and shiny, how it's getting played. So we looked at Thrawn's data specifically. Thrawn was played obviously 7 times. 6 of those were with Gideon and once with Iden. The Gideon Thrawn matchup went 3-3. The Iden Thrawn matchup went 1-0. Some of these were mirror. There was some Thrawn on Thrawn violence. I don't know if any of this is surprising, but clearly it seems like the community is at least starting with Thrawn Gideon. Just based on the data. I don't know if that also contributes to why Iden was lower, is that this is the idea, as people just don't think Gideon Iden is as good as Thrawn Gideon. I don't know if Amon, you have any insight, and then we'll jump to Diz, who's been playing more Thrawn, but any kind of thoughts on if this is the Thrawn pairing? Do we think we could expect this to stay the same or maybe just change as people are experimenting?
I think it's going to depend on the person, which is a bit of a cop-out and answer. But yeah, I think it's going to change. And I think we're probably just going to see people who can make Thrawn Iden work and people who can make Thrawn Gideon work. The cool thing about both those lists is that the way that Thrawn can manipulate the order deck, you can really just choose to influence the board how you see fit. Like, I can definitely see games where it's like Iden, Shatterpoint Iden, deck recycles, and you get Iden. The goal is to get Iden out as much as you can, right? Flood points, move your ISF around. So I'm really curious. I like Gideon though, and I think Gideon is actually a great test piece in that box is very simple. It's not super flashy. It's reliable. So the big impact plays, right? The plays that you might not see could be Thrawn. And so maybe, I don't know if that's really how people approached it, but like that's how I would want to approach it because I know that the Iden box is a lot more highs and lows.
That's interesting. All right, we're gonna jump our order, and I'm gonna jump to Diz, who's been playing a bunch of Thrawn. How does this breakdown look to you?
I think Amon hit it with saying that Gideon kind of just is more apparently obvious a good matchup for Thrawn. The biggest thing is Gideon needs less force. He doesn't need a force himself for anything, and he's an 8-point, so that way you can kind of just put whatever you want with him. He breaks ties. He's also adding a melee die to points you're going after with all your movement. That now you're able to focus and get the Gideon dice. So you're adding 2 dice for like normally 1 is where you'd be getting. So he kind of shores up a little consistency errors. The other thing with Moff is it's a tiebreak piece, and with all the extra movement that you're getting off of Thrawn, that tiebreak piece is massive because you're able to say, hey, I drew Moff. Okay, cool. I'm going to reserve him. Okay, well, now the force that I could have spent on Moff's turn, now that is going to reposition him out of activation and put him onto a point. Okay, cool. Now I just took this point because it's a tiebreak. Now I'm going to draw another card and go somewhere else and take another point. So him being the tiebreak piece really helps out the Thrawn list with all the out of activation movement that you got going on. Not to mention, he also brings out of activation movement. Now on the Iden side, I have issues with the ISF and Hask in a Thrawn list because Hask wants a force, ISF want a force. ISF get wounded rather quickly in games in today's meta, in my honest opinion. I have had multiple games where they'll be removed from the table even, and then maybe I'm just too aggressive with them. But it may be steer straight away from ISF under Thrawn because now instead of 1 force, they want 2 force. And I think Thrawn is very much how can I be the most force efficient with my 5 force, so that way I'm able to use force on my Shatterpoint turn. I'm able to use force for reserve / reposition. And how am I going to be able to abuse this force economy mechanic that I have going on? Because what's something that somebody could do? They say, well, I'm just not going to wound your primaries. Sure, they may be like making plays and stuff like this, but if I just wound all your people and you're not able to reforce your deck and you built your team around banking on that refresh whenever I wound your primary, well, now you're never getting it. And with 5, that can hurt. And ISF being like 2 force for a dash and a focus ain't really worth it. And then they start to really peter off. Same thing with Iden. Iden wants a force for her turn. You may even want 2 force for her turn. So when it comes to Thrawn, a lot of it comes down to being very force economic and budgeting yourself in that way from list construction.
I like it. Good insight. Accuser, anything to add?
I mean, I think Diz covered the vast majority of it. I haven't played Thrawn. I've played into Thrawn, and just he's surprising if you don't really know what his card and his combat tree does before he starts like double or even triple moving across the map to cap a point you thought was safe while moving other units to do it. I mean, you're going to get caught off guard by him if you are not prepared for the sheer amount of battlefield control and shenaniganry that he brings. I was definitely caught flat-footed. I won the game, but it was barely and clawed it out. You got to know what he does, and you've got to be prepared for it.
My feeling on it is, and kind of what Amon said, I do agree that Gideon's the obvious pairing with Thrawn, and I've only played 1 game with Thrawn, and the more I've thought about it, I don't know how far it goes outside of Gideon. Not because Thrawn's the problem. I think, like Dizzard said, the Iden force tax is a little tough there, like just the amount of force having to spend. And I don't think Thrawn and Vader 2 are going to play well because of the 7 squad points each. Oh, there's so many. Are those hands of you want to comment or you feeling that as well? Okay.
Yeah, no, I think Diz and I kind of are barking up the same tree, so go with Diz because I think we had an offline conversation about this exact point.
All right, hit me.
All right, so Vader 2 was actually my first go-to with Thrawn, and it was very much I was like I want this. This is gonna shore up, and then it was terrible. Like I was like I am so short on force. I can't do anything that I want to do. To that being fair, when I'm testing something, I will use all the force all the time just to stress load the list. and be like, if I needed to use all my force, what's it feel like? And it felt terrible. I was like, I can't do anything with Vader, and my opponent's like, well, I'm just gonna wound Vader. Now you really can't do anything with Vader, and it just kind of became a option that didn't really help a lot. Now the other thing is you have two seven cost people, and they share similar eras, to where you're not able to really build them appropriately. And then with the secondary and support options you have in Empire and the stuff that you're wanting to be bringing, to make maximum usage of Thrawn's identity, where you get protection when you're engaged, and being able to reposition off of being reserved and all this other type of things going on, it really makes it hard to build Thrawn and Vader too. Which, I'm a little spoiler alert, I'm kind of leaning towards Thrawn and Vader 1 right now, just because he brings 4 Force, and you have a little more freedom with the eras. So I think if you want to play Vader with Thrawn, it might actually be Vader 1. And Sarah Cruel and I kind of stumbled across that today. He brought it up to me, and I was like, let's try it out. And I'm kind of digging it at the moment. But yeah, I don't like Vader 2 with Thrawn that much. It becomes too Force constraint and too list building difficulties. It hurt. It hurt me. It touched me in the bad place.
I'm curious to come back to that last the Vader 1 thought in the future. So I want to kind of hone in on 2 more primaries for 2 different reasons. So the next one is Princess Leia, charming to the last, just because she's the other new one. So 5 appearances, 3 and 2 overall. Was paired 3 times with Kanan, went 2 and 1 when paired with Kanan. Was paired once with Mando and went 1 and 0, and once with Han and went 0 and 1. So again, Amon, gonna jump to you here. Any thoughts? Does this just seem like the initial kind of salvo for Leia? How, do you have any initial reactions on these pairings and these numbers?
Yeah, I do. So I think those are the 3 obvious pairings with Leia. Like when you think about the current competitive landscape and which primaries are there, I think Han is still part of that shiny new toy syndrome, though fading quite rapidly. And if I was to look at a competitive event and I saw someone take Leia Mando or Leia Kanan, I would be respectful of that list. I think those are the 2 best pairings. Personally, I think Kanan Leia is better. And that's just what I've gravitated to, and it's done really well for me thus far. And I just think Han isn't good. So I think to me that makes sense as to why that was the one loss. Right. I guess there's one with Kanan, but that could have been into maybe with a new player against a seasoned player. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, right, like 5 games is not the definitive end of story, end of chapter on the model. Why are you thinking the Kanan pairing? Like, what are you putting in your Leia Kanan?
Yeah, great question. So my Kanan Leia list right now is Kanan Ezra Rebel Commandos, Leia Sabine Chopper, but I've tried it with Kallus as well. I like both. They just do different things. So if you want to rely more on mobility, Sabine's your girl because she gives that ally a dash, and it works on the commandos, which is great. Kallus just straight murder stuff, and those rerolls are really clutch when you really need someone not to die.
So I definitely that was the other way I've been looking, because for a little transparency, that Mando win was me. That was the other way I was looking at running it, more under the Spectre shell. I've been really enjoying Leia under running her box and playing more the spy aspect, oddly enough. So I highly recommend you kind of take a look at that. Before we go on to Princess Leia, I do want to jump in. I'm going to set a question for you, Amon. So as the Iden lover that you are, what do you think of the Iden Thrawn combo specifically? Kind of, if you want to delve in a little bit more into that.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I'm an Iden lover, but I guess I love Janina, so sure, yeah, Iden lover. I think the Thrawn Iden list could be really interesting because, and I actually wanted to ask this question earlier, so I'm glad, Omnis, you gave me the opportunity to talk about Thrawn specifically. Is, we talk about pairing him with Vader and with Gideon, but I think you want to pair Thrawn with someone who is not that tanky, because you kind of want to use that identity to reshuffle your order deck in those cool moments. And I feel like if you're really aggressive with Aiden in particular, she will die, right? A smart opponent won't kill her, but sometimes you have to kill her because she, for some reason, is camping your back point and killed like 2 of your models, right? Or your units. So you got to take her out, if not displace her. And then it's cool. Now you have more chances to draw into Aiden, more chances to draw into Hask, and you have more chances to draw into your power play, which I think this is extremely fascinating because it just changes the way you reserve things as well. Because it's like if you're fishing for certain units and then hoping they die, there in theory could be units that you don't really activate as much because you're going for a particular game plan. In a protracted engagement, I don't know if it's very good, but I think if you're like trying to blitz 2-0 someone on shifting, maybe. But I think it's really exciting. I want to try it because I want to see how many Aiden activations I can get. For sure.
One thing you said there that I want to circle back to that was really interesting. So you said the idea of like good players aren't going to kill Aiden. Do you mean specifically in the Thrawn, Aiden Thrawn, because of Thrawn's recycling the deck, or are you in general kind of against the idea of going after Aiden?
I think in the pretense of playing her with Thrawn.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if I think it's actually worth killing Aiden if you're asking me that, just because then it just makes her dash and her expose so much more.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was asking. Because like me as the person who is playing into Empire a lot, like Aiden is a reasonably high priority target for exactly what you said. You know, if you can throw an expose on her, she can kind of fall apart. So I was like, when you said that, I kind of got caught off guard. Like, wait a minute, I like killing Aiden. I want to make sure we're clarifying in the Thrawn idea, which makes sense, right? You don't want to give Thrawn that order deck refresh as frequently as or ever if you can avoid it. So I just wanted to make sure I wasn't crazy. I'm like, wait a minute, have I been fighting against Aiden wrong this whole time?
No, I also think it's just more of like that actually plays into why I think she's good with Thrawn. Because if she's such a high priority target, then you're at least getting that order free or the order deck refresh if you want it, right? So it's maybe two bad choices for your opponent, which is great for you as the player.
And then Dizzard, since you patiently had your hand up,
I wanna counterpoint you here real quick.
Okay.
So I actually 100% agree. I think in Aiden, I'm hoping my opponent, like Aiden Thrawn, I'm hoping my opponent goes after Aiden and takes that game plan. It's gonna hurt, but I think it is 100%. You need to be playing fast. You need to be playing aggressive. You are hoping for that 2-0 when the game is over before Aiden flips again. Because you can't afford to have her on 3/4. The other saving grace that you have is you have other ways to move Aiden than her dash, and she doesn't really need the extra dice to get good successes off of her attacks. She doesn't need her focus and sharpshooter to be good. Like that just kind of sends her over the edge, in my opinion, to where she's full train a good amount of times versus maybe half a tree, which at that point you're still doing a good amount of damage in some good conditions and or shoves. So I think Thrawn with Aiden is fine, but I think it's also you are building that matchup and you are building that in mind. Like you're building that. You're like, I am going to play this game as fast and I'm going to overwhelm my opponent to where they're not going to know what hit them. And that's how you play that game. And that's just, for me, that's not how I play. So that's why I'm also just kind of drawn away from it.
No, I think it's great points by both of you, and thank you, Omnis, for tossing that question. It was really good. So circling back to where we were with Leia, we were on you, Accuser. Any thoughts looking at this Leia data? Anything that's standing out to you?
I'm not particularly shocked. A Leia Kanan matchup is about as like revengey a list you can make a Rebel team right now. Leia Mando seems really good too, but being able to outgun Han, I'm not shocked. Her range band is just crazy compared to Han. Being able to dash and shoot at range 5 on her revenge trigger, like Han doesn't have a chance against that. Like as much as I love Han, I've had a great time every time I've played him, but like Leia's also 8 squad points. It's an easy swap 1-for-1, and if the new Han support's good, like I'm not even losing access to Han in the trade-off. So, I'm not shocked by this.
Yeah. And And then since this is step flavors, and so kind of my take on this, yeah, I tried, so I've played a bunch of games with Leia. Frankly, since I kind of said I didn't think Han was that good. I tried one with the Leia Han. I hated it. I really didn't like it. They're too much of the same thing, and I don't think it works well. I really liked kind of what Amon's talking about with the Kanan Leia kind of Spectre shell. And then I went into the Mando one to try to, and that my goal of that was to try to play Leia with her entire box, because I kind of challenged myself with my own unlearn of, hey, go try to make Han and Chewie better, and found that I was in love with that combo and what that can do. The only thing really with that I'm trying to figure out is like, so I think Luke's great. He's 7 health. He's a little squishy. His defensive expertise are really good. I have a hard time with the his ability. He's the brain sweetheart. Getting it to work outside of just Luke. That's the one where any Rebel Alliance or spy characters within range 3 who have a hunker get to reroll 2 misses on range attacks. It's great for him because he gets to keep his hunkers. I can't really get it to work on Han and Chewie. I understand the idea is like Leia gets to, after her revenge trigger, put a hunker on someone, but then they just activate and lose it. So I'm still trying to work out those details. Nothing about this surprises me. I really think everybody who's interested in Leia, I think Amon hit the nail on the head with the Kanan list. If you want to try that pairing, I think you should give the Mando pairing a go. And I've been running as Mando Callus, and then either R2 Lando or the Rebel Commandos. R2 Lando really just because they have that spy aspect, and the not being able to be shot seems nice into more of the Iden Empire list. But I'd also be curious if there's anybody else who's coming up with some other ways to pair Leia, Princess Leia, that we're not thinking of. And yeah, Accuser, back to you.
I mean, I'm thinking about Luke and that ability as well, right? The rerolling with hunkers. I'm not sure it's necessarily great with Leia or like the box out of the shell, right? For the exact reasons you've lined up, where you're losing the hunker when you activate. You're not getting it for combat activations easily. Where I think it really shines is it opens up Ewok list building for Rebels with the other Princess Leia and Ewoks that are able to dash into hunker tokens, or more importantly, Rebel Commandos that get to dash into a hunker plus a focus. That's where that Luke's really going to shine, is outside of the Leia box, in with the other Rebel stuff, making Commandos, and Commandos already hit, I think, really hard for a support. I mean, they're now throwing 8 dice each, re-rolling 2 of them. That's really solid. And I think that's where Luke's going to excel as part of a Luke Rebel Commando in a 7-cost package.
Yeah, and I love with that, like, I know we've been talking about Ewoks, and that is our challenging the odds for this week.
It's on the to-do list, yeah.
Yeah, I'd really love to kind of get an idea on what, I mean, look, full disclosure from the NA League, like Magic nicked out 9 wounds with Ewoks right out of the gate. So I'm really curious.
Yeah, and frankly, I'd put solid money that a lot of those wounds came out of Commandos. That that package sounds insane.
Yeah, so I'm really curious on that.
Off of Leia.
Yeah, so I'm curious to look at that a little bit more. So then our last kind of primary I wanted to hit on here is real quick, just because we have him on, our Longshanks #1 ranked Mando player. So what I found interesting from the data, so we saw we saw Mando 6 times in the first round, and 5 different primaries, which seems like a pretty wild ratio there. I know we've all talked about Mando being that like kind of plug in pairing. This question mostly for Amon. Is there, so one, I guess like the Kanan at 0-2 seems surprising. Just that it would still be that's the most frequently taken Mando pairing round 1. And also, is there a Mando pairing on here or that's missing from here that you think people are sleeping on?
Yeah, great question. I think to address the Kanan losses, I think because the list is so popular, people have just kind of figured out how to take it down, and it's just wound Mando, wound the Rebel Commandos, right? And then anyone else who's not a Spectre, just wound them. So while Kanan is influencing points, he's not attacking other people, right?
Mm.
In terms of a primary that I think is missing, no, I think most of this makes pretty much sense. I mean, especially when you give us the reasonings as to why you paired him rather with Charming Leia. The only list maybe is like I could see like an Empire primary paired with Mando, and then just Mando an Empire all underneath it. So Mando's the face of a double Empire list.
Yeah, that's interesting. And that was kind of my feeling. If I had to pull something out, was kind of the Empire shell. And then I don't know, Accuser, any thoughts on this?
I mean, I am admittedly a little surprised that the Mando Kanan pairing's as low as it was, because that does sound really good on paper, but I think Amon hit it on the head. Like, it's becoming a known quantity and it's going to get solved. The Ahsoka and Maul pairings, though, I think are really cool because, I mean, looking beyond just it's Ahsoka and Maul, they're core box units, and I think we've said on the cast before that they should be, in theory, evergreen units that anyone can pick up and play fairly well, but they're also really good shells for the core box Mandalorians. And Mando is starting to, like, with as the eras get fleshed out and you get access to units like Sabine, and as Paz Vizsla becomes available, and the covert Mandalorians become available, I think it's just going to show that the core box Mandalorians are still going to be relevant, even if they are, a little squishy, maybe not as splashy as they were on release. I think that Ahsoka and Maul show that the Mandalorian tag is alive and well.
Diz, anything you want to pile on here?
Not really. I think it's pretty much all been said. Mando's good. Like,
Yeah. So kind of moving past this, we have two more quick things I think we want to hit on here. Is the next thing is so Amon, obviously we talked a lot about your list last week and kind of went through what it was. Real quick, your take if you're going to two of us here are going to Nova, one of us is going to Crucible, so we're all prepping for upcoming GTs. If you were traveling with us to one of those GTs, what's your prime, like how are you tweaking things from your list moving into an upcoming event in the next month or so, if at all?
Yeah, good question. I'd probably just drop Empire, right? I think the Mando Maul list is probably I think it's really good, and it has a game into everything, even into Empire, right? Which I would consider its weakness. I talk about this on Hello There a little bit, but meta to me feels like Empire beats Dice's Displacement beats Rebels beats Empire, right? But also Empire can just win anything. So I'd probably drop Empire, move the Dark Troopers from the Vader Squad, and replace the Rebel Commandos that are with Mando, which give DTE another opportunity to dash something, right? Influence the board a little bit more, and then plus putting one of the best units in the game in a list full of good stuff. And then I would just take Leia Kanan, and I would take that list I mentioned earlier. And I also think that list is good, has an option to really work into anything. But Hunter and Iden particularly is great. The conversation then becomes, is it Sabine or is it Kallus, right? And that's a player pick, I think, at that point, playstyle preference.
Yeah, like having played both of them kind of in that shell, it's Kallus is more of that independent operator. Obviously, that reroll has a chance to impact a lot with Kanan is really good, but like Kallus is more that guy who's going to go do his own thing, and Sabine's going to have a lot more impact on her turn of other units with having that dash, having a lot more mobility. So, like being able to dash somebody else. I mean, so no, it's really interesting. And that's a good take. So it's kind of neat to see. Empire is obviously we keep seeing as like the big baddie in terms of numbers, and you're already thinking like, well, here are ways to beat it. So let's step away from that a little bit. And I love those pairings. And we did talk about that all comers list last week of like what the Mando Maul does and how it kind of plays. So that's some really good input. I love it. And obviously, listen to Hello There's episode. I'm sure you guys will give some deeper recaps into that. And then, unless Accuser or Dizzard have anything else, I think we're on to our unlearn what you have learned for the week. No? All right. So, Aman, we're putting you on the spotlight as the guest. So, our segment of unlearn what you have learned. So, the idea of this is you need to challenge the audience to rethink something, revisit something, basically what you would try to recommend to somebody moving forward or what they can do. So, what is your challenge to the community for the week?
My challenge to the community is to start thinking about ways in which you can play the game that you don't, in a way in which you don't naturally do. So if you're someone who likes playing Hunter or Aiden and you really like being aggressive, I challenge you to play a game where you make the least amount of attacks as possible, right? And see how you can win that game. Conversely, if you're someone who doesn't like making attacks, doesn't like making those risks, and is someone who's focusing on playing defensively, I challenge you to play something all out, right? And see what your play patterns are. Because even if you go back to the lists that you like and the styles you like, maybe it'll help you get better at anticipating what your opponent is trying to do and what play patterns they might be able to pull out of their hat. So that's how I would challenge the listener. And do it in the NA League.
Yeah. No, I love it. That's great. I think that is definitely, you will only get better getting outside of your shell. And I am the first to say I don't do enough of that. And when I do it, I'm shocked how much I learn. Accuser, anything else you want to add on?
I mean, I don't think for that. I think it's a really good challenge. I think it's always the best way to grow as a player is get yourself out of your shell, get yourself out of your normal habit, and learn something new. You can't beat it if you don't understand it. To defeat an enemy, you must know them.
I like it. And then Dizzard, all you, take us home.
Yeah, that's pretty much gonna be it. I agree 100% and have fun with it too. So if you whenever okay, how about this? Basically, I think the best way like to simply word this in my convoluted way of wording things is if so you ask somebody like, hey, help me with this list, and you say, oh no, I don't like that. That's probably what you should be playing like with this whole project. Yeah. All right.
And as you move on to your 602nd iteration of your list, are you going to take that advice?
No, because I am in tournament prep mode. Anyways, I think with that, we have been a show. And thank you, everybody, for listening. Thank you, Aman, for hanging out with us. Do you want to go ahead and let people know where they can find you?
Yeah, you can find me pretty much anywhere on any of the public Star Wars Discords in some variation of Aman. That's AMAN. You can also listen to me on Hello There with Jesse Aiken, who is my co-host, where we talk about a ton of Star Wars Shatterpoint stuff. And yeah, also sometimes you can find me on Rogue Support. So listen to Rogue Support too.
Awesome. And then with that, we hope you all have a good day, night, whenever you are listening to this. And we'll catch you next time.